UNLV is rich. What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff, and on today's show, can UNLV be the best group of 6 athletic department because of how much money they have? Plus, Josh Pastner has some media support, and the Raiders are copying the Titans. That will work out. I am going to be the attendance police once again for the media, but you're gonna have to stick around for that. Maybe teacher, I'm taking attendance, so maybe not police, maybe teacher, that's a better way to do it. But I want to start with how much money UNLV athletics have. So they're the richest team in the New Mountain West. They're going to dominate the conference, right? So Nevada Sportsnet has a story up because they got a copy of UNLV's athletic department budget, their revenues, their expenses, all of that for the 2025 fiscal year. And UNLV had $77 million in revenue. Best the school's ever had, best in the New Mountain West. We'll get to the group of 6 because it's pretty good in that regard as well. But here's the key part. UNLV produced roughly $27 million more in revenue in 2025 than they did in 2024, right? They had a deficit in 2024. UNLV athletic department spent $20 million more than they created or made in 2024. Now they have a $2 million surplus, and the revenue went from roughly $50 million to roughly $77 million, a $27 million jump in revenue, which sounds too good to be true. I mean, that's an incredible turnaround for UNLV athletics. Now, I think in the big picture, when we talk about college athletics, money is obviously driving so much. It's driving player movement. It drives coach movement. It also drives program movement. When you join a new conference, right? Money is the key to all of this, and having more of it helps. If we compare UNLV across college athletics, right? At the very top, Ohio State is at about $250 million in revenue. That's according to USA Today. Of note, not all of these schools are updated for the 2025 fiscal year. Some of these numbers are still their 2024 fiscal year. So it's possible all of them jumped up by $27 million. But Ohio State's up at the top at about $250 million. Again, UNLV had their best ever, and they're at 77. So they're not anywhere close to Ohio State. And there's only a few, and again in 2024, there's only a few power conference programs that reported less than $100 million in revenue. And it's possible in 2025, they're all going to be over $100 million because they were pretty much not too far away. So if you look at sort of the low end of power conferences, UNLV is still $25 million away, roughly, right? So we know there's a gap between UNLV and all the group of 5 and the power conferences. It's actually not that big now. If UNLV is bringing home 75, 77 million a year, it's not as big as you'd think for the bottom of the power conference. But just to get to the midpoint of these conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten specifically, I mean, you'd almost have to double what you're getting at 75. So there's a pretty big gap between this and the top 30, 35 programs in college athletics. But at the group of 6 level, 75 million, it's not going to put UNLV at the very top. There's a couple of American athletic teams that are higher than that. Air Force in 2024 had an athletic department budget report of $76 million. I thought all of Air Force's stuff was private, but anyway, so Air Force might actually end up being higher than UNLV, but 77 is higher than 76, so it's the highest in the Mountain West as of now. Ultimately, if you have 77, 76, whatever. If you have 85, I think that's some of the American athletic teams are closer to 85. Okay, that's a little bit of an advantage. But what it means is the UNLV should be in the top 5 of group of 6 programs, right? If a few other teams have 26 million increases, they'll pass them, but should be around the top 5. And I think that means as far as like expectations as an athletic department, not necessarily, hey, every single year we expect football to do this or basketball to do this, but just generally speaking across the entire athletic department, that UNLV should be really good at the group of 6 level. Like that there's no reason they shouldn't be having more success across the group of 6. And that means, having a good football program that competes for conference championships and is in the conversation for the college football playoff. Doesn't mean you make it, but you're in that discussion. Has a basketball program that goes to the NCAA tournament on a fairly regular basis, and then across all of the sports, right? We don't care quite as much about the other sports, but they should be good at the other ones for the group of six level. There's a clear ceiling, right? The power conferences are making more money. You're not really going to break through that on a regular basis, but they should be towards the top of the group of six. I think that's a key understanding of sort of where they fit into the grand scheme of college athletics, is that we should think think of UNLV as one of the top group of six athletic departments. Will that manifest in actual wins on the field and on the court and everything over the next 5 years? We'll see. But this number sort of puts them right up there in that top tier of group of six programs. Now, there's a couple of details in this, and I apologize in advance. I'm not an accountant, and I'm a little confused. If I'm wrong about something, please yell at me. But Nevada Sportsnet published a story, and they broke down a lot of the numbers of how UNLV got to this huge revenue number, this $77 million revenue, this big turnaround, this $27 million turnaround from where they were last year. And I have a copy of UNLV's revenues and expenses from the 2024 fiscal year when they had a $20 million deficit, right? They had to present that to the Board of Regents and everything. So comparing these numbers, right? Ticket sales, the money they got from that increased by about $3 million. They have a category that's just other revenue. Don't really know what goes into that, but that increased by about $5 million, right? So you've got some gains there. However, UNLV had less money in their sort of marketing and licensing bucket, so they made less money there. They said they made less money in donations as well from 2024 to 2025. And those basically make up for the increased ticket sales and the increased other revenue. So there's nothing significant there. Where the significant increase comes from is public money revenue. So UNLV has a column in their 2024 budget that's listed as state funds, and they got about the same amount in state funds in 2024 as 2025. But according to the Nevada Sportsnet story, UNLV also got $24.4 million in institutional support. Looking at the budget that they submitted to the Board of Regents in 2024, that column, that phrase doesn't exist. There is not an institutional support bucket of their 2024 budget. So I don't even know what that means. Like, that's very vague. Who's supporting the institution? I don't know. But that is that's their biggest source of revenue. Any of these categories, none of them are as big as the institutional support that wasn't there in 2024. So I feel like I have to be missing something, because what is this? Why is the biggest category not in 2024? And now here it is, and it's very close to the actual difference between their revenue in 2024 and 2025. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, but this is where they made their money, is whatever institutional revenue is. And the reason that I think, like, where the money came from or how they're getting the money, the reason I think it's important, other than being a public university and public funding and all of that, but if we're trying to set success or a standard of success for UNLV, or an expectation of success, and if we're saying, hey, they've got as much money as any other group of six program, is the budget going to be the same next year? Is $24 million in institutional support, was that a one-time thing that's gone next year, and next year they're going to be back to 50 to 55 million in revenue? Or is that going to be an every year thing? Because if it's a one-time thing, then we're going to look at revenue and say, oh, all right, they're going right back down to the 50 million range instead of the 75 to 80 million range next year. And then we might need to say, oh, maybe they aren't one of the best group of six athletic departments. So I hope somebody can tell me what I'm getting wrong, because I'm sure I'm getting something wrong, but I don't know what institutional support is, and why the Nevada Sportsnet story says UNLV has $24 million in institutional support when that did not exist in the budget from 2024 in their nice little presentation they gave to the Board of Regents. So I don't know. One other note on this, because saw some tweets, and it's reasonable to assume this, but UNLV football's been good now, right? They've played for Mountain West championships. Dan Mullen has carried over success that Barry Odom built on. Having a good football program, in theory, is how you make money as an athletic department. From the Nevada Sportsnet story, UNLV football lost money. UNLV football, their expenses was $21.8 million. Their revenue for football was $14.6. So they lost quite a bit of money just on the football program, which, by the way, seems bad, right? That doesn't seem great, but is also very weird because we're talking about an athletic department making a whole lot more money than they ever have, while the football team is really good. But the football team didn't actually turn a profit. Like UNLV's telling us their football team is operating at a loss, a $7 million loss. That seems weird. So that detail was also interesting, and again brings me back to what the hell is institutional support, and that's making them all of their money. But if UNLV is going to be bringing home $75+ million a year in revenue, then they should be at the top of not just the Mountain West, but all of the group of 6, because they are comparable to the top programs that are not in a power conference. Now, on to some UNLV basketball. First up, very important note. 9 media members showed up to cover Josh Pastner's press conference on Thursday. This was the first pregame press conference since last week, when I was the only media member that showed up and attended Josh Pastner's press conference. And you're damn right, I'm taking credit for it. Public shame works. I successfully shamed the rest of the media into covering UNLV. So everyone is back. I'm bringing everyone back to UNLV. You're all welcome. But in all seriousness, it is great that more people were there. And here's the thing. It doesn't have anything to do with that specific press conference. It doesn't have anything to do with because I'd say this, that press conference, not that newsworthy. There wasn't really anything that interesting that Josh Pastner said in that press conference. You didn't miss anything if you missed that press conference. But it is important that media that covers UNLV on a regular basis actually shows up to everything. It's important for you, the fan, that people are there to talk about this team, to get information, or the entertainment part, provide opinions on UNLV athletics. That's what should be important. And not every press conference is going to have something fun or important or newsworthy, like especially with a team that's not that good and doesn't have NCAA tournament hopes, right? Yeah. But to just have nobody show up is brutal. And so for 9 different media members to be there, it's good to have multiple TV stations there, to have somebody from the radio there, to have multiple people from the Review Journal there. It's all good that happened. And hopefully it continues to happen, because as much as I've reveled in the fact that I was the only one there and made it a story, I don't like when I'm the only one there, because other people ask good questions that produce good answers that help me as well. My point of view is not the only good point of view. Other people help with that, and Josh Pastner answering their questions. Now, one thing from that press conference, because I was curious about it, UNLV beat San Jose State, and they beat San Jose State in part because they played the end of that game without a center. They played the last 17 minutes without a center. They went to a smaller lineup. Josh Pastner, after the game, said it's because San Jose State was hitting a bunch of threes, and they wanted to go with a smaller lineup to take those away. So I asked Pastner, you're going to do that more, right? Is that a thing that UNLV tries to do more? Was that a lineup that he liked beyond just San Jose State? And he's kind of said this twice now afterwards, that it's about feel for him. In game, what does he feel like is going to work with this team? So basically saying, no, he's not going to go into a game and just say, yep, let's run out the small lineup and see how the other team adjusts to it. It's more of I feel like the small lineup might work after we've seen 5 minutes, right? The other team did hit a bunch of threes, and we need to switch every screen defensively. So let's send out the small lineup so we can switch a lot easier. Boise State's an interesting team. UNLV plays Boise State tonight. Boise State's an interesting team in this regard, because Boise State's center shoots threes. He's 6'11", and he's hitting 38% from 3. So if preventing threes is a key for Josh Pastner, and the other team has a center that shoots threes, does that make it more or less likely that you should play small? I would say more likely go small, switch screens so Boise State doesn't get threes directly off of screens. And in theory, you don't have to send a help side defender to any ball screen because you just switch it. But UNLV is a bad defensive rebounding team. They're 8th in the Mountain West in defensive rebounding percentage. Boise State is a good rebounding team. They're 4th in offensive rebounding rate. They're also 1st in defensive rebounding rate. Boise State's a very good rebounding team. Going small means you're going to give up more rebounds. In theory, means you're going to give up more rebounds. So is it worth it to potentially take away a few threes that they would get up to then get beat a few more times on the glass? That's sort of what you have to weigh. And maybe you do a good enough job rebounding, you don't get beat despite playing small. Maybe Tyron Jones and Kamani Hamilton have a good enough game. You don't get beat there, right? But that's sort of the trade-off you have to have against a team that has a good shooting center, but is also a good rebounding team. You might go small, take away some threes, and then just get destroyed on the offensive glass. And now you're stuck. You're giving up more points than you would have if you had played big. So we'll see. I will say this. The first time these two teams played, UNLV won the game. It was one of Boise State's 4 worst offensive and defensive rebounding games. So UNLV actually did a really good job rebounding against Boise State, despite that being a strength of Boise State. Also, though, Boise State was 3 of 14 from 3 in that game. It's the fewest threes they've taken in any game this season, and their 4th worst percentage. So they didn't rebound well, and they didn't shoot the 3 very well, so maybe UNLV has nothing to worry about. Also of note in this game, or this matchup, Boise State is number 1 in the Mountain West in free throw rate, meaning the percentage of possessions that end with free throws. Boise State's doing that more than anybody else. UNLV's defense is allowing the highest free throw rate in the conference. So the foul problems that we've seen, yeah, there's a good chance they're coming back in this game. Last time they played, though, Emmanuel Steffen did foul out. Happens. Dre Gibbs Lawhorn into the game with 4 fouls, but Kamani Hamilton played 35 minutes, only had 3 fouls in the entire game. UNLV had just 26 total team fouls over 45 minutes. 26 is still a lot, but it's not a crazy high number like we've seen in some of these games. It's not too bad given what UNLV normally does. So everything I just told you is basically saying, hey, what Boise State does well as a team, they didn't do any of it against UNLV. None of it. None of what makes them good happened against UNLV. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this game play out completely different from the first matchup that UNLV was able to win, and we'll see what adjustments Pastner makes in game.
Battle Blast, been serving Las Vegas since June 2012 with the very best in family entertainment. We are proud to provide the best facility, equipment, and service possible. Strap on laser tag vests, step into the 5,600 square foot 2-story arena designed to look like a worn, torn city street. An exciting atmosphere filled with exhilarating music, blacklight effects, and fog. Battle Blast also features a viewing deck for those not playing can watch players vest up and catch a view of the action going on in the arena. In between games, check out our arcade and prize center and enjoy tasty treats from our snack bar. Birthday parties, sports teams, group outings, and corporate events. Battle Blast does it all. We want to make your Battle Blast experience so good you'll want to return again and again. Battle Blast is the ultimate destination for family fun and friendly competition.
Bischoff's Briefs is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. It's the perfect spot for your next event, whether that's your kid's birthday party or a corporate event. Head to Battle Blast Las Vegas. Get your friends, your family together, or your coworkers, and head out to Battle Blast Las Vegas. They've got an arcade and prizes as well. There's more than just laser tag. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue. Your next stop for fun in Las Vegas. Also, if you want to sponsor the show, reach out to me, technicallycorrectvegas@gmail.com. We can sponsor this show and make this show possible for everybody to listen. Now, I've got a confusing thing to explain here really quick about something the Raiders did. The Raiders did one of the weirdest things that I can remember a team doing on social media. So a couple of years ago, there was a rumor that Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, was going to be the father of a woman's baby. And this woman was a girl in her 20s that was in Mark Davis's box at a game. She was pregnant at the time, according to her Instagram, but it was not Mark Davis's baby. Well, the entire reason that became a rumor is because a Twitter account called Dov Kleiman tweeted out that Mark Davis was having a baby with this woman. Dov Kleiman made it up entirely. It was not true, but this Dov Kleiman account just made it up. Well, yesterday, the Raiders posted to Twitter and Facebook this story and a bunch of photos about how the internet was excited for Clint Kubiak to be the Raiders head coach, right? It was supposed to be this, hey, look at how great the Clint Kubiak hire is because all these people in the media have been saying how great Clint Kubiak is. But they included in that a post of a tweet from Dov Kleiman that was saying the Raiders are going to be a problem next year. Of all the people on the internet that said something good about Clint Kubiak, how did they pull Dov Kleiman, the guy who falsely accused the team owner of impregnating a woman just because she was in the box at an NFL game? How did they pull that guy? By the way, that's not the only time Dov Kleiman has said something wrong or controversial about the Raiders. If you go to the Wikipedia page for Dov Kleiman, there's a section called criticism. There are 3 different instances of Dov Kleiman doing something negatively for the Raiders or to the Raiders. He got in an argument with Derek Carr once, and there's one with Mike Lombardi and Antonio Pierce. Like, how? Multiple times this account has come out and said or done something that was either wrong or just bad for the Raiders, and then they go and pull his tweet and say, look, he's very excited about Clint Kubiak. How is that the one you pull? That seems insane to me that that would actually be the Twitter account that they would use to hype up hiring Clint Kubiak a couple years after he falsely accused Mark Davis of impregnating a woman. In the Olympics, the United States beat Latvia 5-1 in their Olympic men's hockey opener. It was 1-1 halfway through the game, but the U.S. absolutely dominated the last 30. They dominated the first 32. They had 2 goals that were called back. Whatever. They were pretty dominant overall, just not on the scoreboard. Jack Eichel had a couple of power play assists. Brock Nelson scored twice. He was probably the big star for the U.S. Noah Hannafin. So I didn't realize this. You dress 20 players in an Olympic game, meaning you have 7 defensemen and 13 forwards. So Noah Hannafin was the 7th defenseman for the United States. Normally you only have 6 defensemen and 12 forwards, but he was the 7th defenseman for the United States. So he played in the game and was on the ice for 2 of the U.S. goals. So he played, was not a healthy scratch or anything like that. We'll see how the minutes are distributed when they play a bit more of a competitive game. I think it was Emily Kaplan that reported that Hannafin probably wouldn't play very much as the 7th defenseman, but when you're winning 5-1 in the third period, you can play everybody. It doesn't really matter. Canada also won their first game. They beat Tomas Hertl and Czechia 5-0. Mitch Marner had a really nice assist to Mark Stone. So the 2 Golden Knights who were on a line together teamed up to score a goal in that one. I'm gonna be annoying. And like I hate this because it's like, oh, I'm not enjoying the sports, but we're all waiting on the gold medal game, right? Like, neither of these teams better screw it up. Just Canada, United States, gold medal game. Anything other than that's going to be a massive disappointment. If either one of these teams gets upset and they somehow meet before the gold medal, or they get upset in the quarters or the semis and we don't get to see them play for the gold, I mean, that's just going to suck. The whole thing's going to feel like a letdown. So I don't want to be like, they're just going to beat everybody 5-0. But they're just going to beat everybody 5-0. Can we just get to the United States and Canada? By the way, the U.S. women, play a quarterfinal on Friday at noon. So they are into the knockout round of the women's side. So the U.S., the favorites to win that one after they annihilated Canada, start today, at least in the knockout rounds. Also, I do find it funny the Olympics in group play has the 3-2-1-0 format for points. So you get 3 points if you win in regulation, 0 if you lose in regulation, 2 if you win in overtime, 1 if you lose in overtime, where the NHL is still using you get 2 wins no matter what, or 2 points for a win no matter what, and then we throw in a loser point so that in the NHL, some games are worth 3 points, some games are worth 2 points. I like that the Olympics has it right, and the NHL is like, nah. We're not interested in that. Now, back on the Raiders. The Raiders hired Mike McCoy as an assistant coach, according to Tom Pelissero. And he has been a head coach before in the NFL with the Chargers. He's been a assistant coach a lot of different places across the league. And as I'm sure you've already heard, if you've read anything about Mike McCoy getting hired by the Raiders, Mike McCoy is going to brings valuable experience. He's going to help a first-time head coach like Clint Kubiak. We hear that all the time when you have a first-time head coach and they go out and they hire some assistant that has head coaching experience, and they've got to surround him with experienced coaches to help him as his first time as a head coach. This has become one of the narratives, one of the cliches that annoys the hell out of me because it has no importance whatsoever. Not a single bit of importance. Every single new head coach hires some experienced former head coach to help them. And it doesn't mean they're going to be good. We heard it with Antonio Pierce. They had like 3 former head coaches that were helping Antonio Pierce, and he was still terrible at it. Even Pete Carroll, who had as much experience as anybody, who was his offensive coordinator? Oh, was a former head coach in the NFL. So just hiring a guy because he used to be a head coach, he knows things, doesn't mean anything. And you know how I know that? Because Mike McCoy, the guy the Raiders just hired, just failed at this. Because you know where he was last year? The Tennessee Titans. The Raiders are copying the Titans because the Titans had their head coach, Brian Callahan. First year as a head coach, he was terrible. His second year as a head coach, we're going to hire somebody with experience to help him out. So they brought in Mike McCoy. And you know what happened? Brian Callahan got fired before the season ended because the Titans were terrible, right? Mike McCoy did not help Brian Callahan become a better head coach. It just didn't happen. And here's what I want to read to you. The Tennessean, one of the main newspapers in Nashville. This is what from a Tennessean story after the Titans hired Mike McCoy. One of the major things the Titan staff was lacking was experience at the top. The Titans are surrounding their operation with veteran minds like Mike McCoy, who can bounce ideas off the younger figures in charge. The Titans literally just hired Mike McCoy to be the veteran presence for their head coach, and it failed spectacularly. And you still have people coming out and saying, oh, it's very important for Clint Kubiak to get Mike McCoy in here to help him and give him valuable experience. What experience? How to get fired in a year and a half from Tennessee? It doesn't mean anything. Clint Kubiak's not going to be a good or bad head coach because Mike McCoy is here. It's not important. If it was, Mike McCoy would still be in Tennessee with Brian Callahan because Brian Callahan wouldn't have gotten fired because Tennessee would have been better. But they weren't because it doesn't mean anything. Also, according to Ari Meroff, the Raiders are interviewing Rob Leonard for their defensive coordinator position. Rob Leonard is the Raiders defensive line coach, or was the Raiders defensive line coach. I don't know. Is he still under contract? Probably. But he's been with the Raiders for the last 3 seasons, so it's not just a Pete Carroll guy that's still around. But this I thought was very interesting from Ari Meroff's tweet. He said, very notable, as Leonard is one of the coaches Max Crosby respects the most in the building. Is he? So 2 things. First off, if you're hiring a guy to be your defensive coordinator just because Max Crosby likes him, that would be incredibly dumb. Yes, you can fire the defensive coordinator after 1 season, but that would be incredibly dumb. We just saw the Raiders do that with Antonio Pierce at head coach. Max Crosby wanted him. Didn't work out very well. Hire the best possible defensive coordinator, not the one that Max Crosby likes. I think that's the most important thing here. Second, does Ari Meroff know who Max Crosby likes and dislikes on the coaching staff or just in the building in general? Because that's the whole Max Crosby saga, and does he want to be traded or the Raiders going to trade him? One of the things we don't know is who was or is Max Crosby mad at. Right, because he left the building. He was not happy when they told him that he was not going to play. Right? Is he still mad at somebody? And who is that person? Or was he mad at somebody and he's gotten over it? I don't know. Was it just Pete Carroll? And Pete Carroll's now gone, so it doesn't matter anymore. Or was it outside the coaching staff, John Spytek, who is still here, which would be problematic if Max Crosby doesn't like John Spytek. But I don't want the detail of who he likes. I want the detail of who he doesn't like because he wasn't happy the way this season ended. In college football, Ole Miss's quarterback Trinidad Chambliss won a court case yesterday for an extra year of eligibility. So the NCAA has denied Trinidad Chambliss's request for an extra year of eligibility, but yesterday a judge sided with Trinidad Chambliss, giving him an injunction that allows him to play college football next season. The NCAA is going to appeal it. It's a long time before the season starts, so we'll see how many times this goes to court and who actually wins by the time we get to start the season. But and by if you're unaware, I went to Ole Miss. But the part that seems weird is the argument for Trinidad Chambliss is that he was at Ferris State, a Division II school, and his first season he redshirted, just a completely normal redshirt his first year. His second season, he did not play because of a medical issue, and that should be considered a medical redshirt year. Because then he played the next 2 years at Ferris State, transferred to Ole Miss, and he's only played 3 seasons of college football. The other 2 he didn't play at all. So he's only played 3 years. And there's apparently multiple stories from when he was at Ferris State that he was missing the whole year because of a medical issue, that he was taking a medical red shirt. I guess there was some paperwork problem. I don't know why the NCAA doesn't recognize it or it didn't happen then, whatever. But it didn't happen even though there are like people are like pulling broadcasts of Ferris State games where the play-by-play announcers being like, oh, he's getting a medical red shirt. And they're like, see, everybody knew it was a medical red shirt from like 4 years ago. But the NCAA lost this court case. And what was interesting is, I guess in this court case, the NCAA, their attorneys did not call any sort of like medical witness to basically be like, oh, he could have played. Because that I guess is their whole argument that like, oh, he didn't play, but he could have, right? Like he shouldn't have been out for the whole season, and they didn't have any sort of medical people come in to say, oh yeah, whatever, tonsillitis, I can't remember what it was, but he was like, they're like, oh yeah, he clearly could have played football with that. They didn't do that, which made it seem like the NCAA wasn't taking it seriously. I don't know, very weird, but it looks like he's going to have another year of eligibility, which funny in college sports that we have courts deciding who's eligible and not eligible. And like we saw with Alabama and Charles Bediako, what did he play in 5 games? And then they were like, oh, wait, no, he's actually ineligible. So we'll see what happens overall. But also for the NFL level, I think if Trinidad Chambliss were in this draft class, he's the second best quarterback behind Fernando Mendoza. And I want to talk myself into him being the best quarterback ahead of Fernando Mendoza, but I won't do that. If he goes back to school, next year's class is projected to be better. We'll see. This year's class was supposed to be pretty good, and then all of the quarterbacks that were supposed to be drafted, they all sucked. Lenora Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier, all of them were bad. Arch Manning, like all of them sucked. So next year's class should be better, but we thought this one would be better. So in theory, he could come out now, and there's a chance between now and the NFL draft, he works his way up to quarterback 2, passes Ty Simpson, and gets drafted in the first round. But he also has like a $5 million NIL deal waiting for him if he's able to play college football, which is more than he would make in 1 year, his first year in the NFL, assuming he doesn't get picked in like the top 10. So that's always fun. Also, last thing in briefs, in Major League Baseball, here's a fun one for you. There's a rule there's a rule that's already been in place. Let me phrase that properly. There's a rule already in place about the first and third base coaches, and that they have to stay inside their box. If you ever watch a baseball game, there's a little painted box by the bases. That's where the base coaches are supposed to be. But the rule's never enforced. Literally never. Like no base coach stands inside the box. They're always way outside the box. But Major League Baseball has decided they are going to strictly enforce that this year. At least that's according to a story at ESPN. They're going to strictly enforce that. And the reason is because base coaches have been moving out of their box to get a different view, a different angle of the pitcher, so they can see what pitch is about to be thrown, or pick up on like a tell, right? A pitcher, he always moves his elbow a certain way, or his glove shakes a certain way when he's about to throw a curveball or a fastball or a slider, whatever it is. They get a different view because they've got something and they can pick up on what pitch he's about to throw. And then that base coach relays it to the hitter. And so the hitter knows what's coming. So what it means is there's a rule in place that Major League Baseball doesn't enforce, and that multiple teams are breaking. And they're breaking that rule to figure out what pitch is being thrown. And then they're relaying what they have found out by breaking a rule to their hitters, what pitch is coming. Sounds familiar. Sounds like the biggest scandal you could possibly have. I expect there to be a ton of outrage about what happened in Major League Baseball because anytime a team is stealing signs, you know it's the worst thing that's ever happened to the sport. Technically Correct is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. Host your birthday party at Battle Blast. You can book the party package and you'll get a private party room, a host, pizza, soda, arcade tokens, and of course, laser tag. If kids look like they're having fun and you want to do it too, you can also add on a game for adults after the kids are done. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue, your next stop for fun in Vegas. If you want to support me more, I have a Patreon. You can subscribe, get some bonus content, and here's the key. If you subscribe at the highest tier, you get to give me a topic once a month that I will talk about on this show. Shout out to Arnold, who has given me a topic here for the month of February. Arnold said, would the group of 6 conferences benefit from their own 8-team playoff? 6 conference champs and 2 at-large teams. So, I want to start with the current playoff format. You have 12 teams. One group of 6 team is guaranteed a spot. That is good, considering the history of the sport. That is good for the group of 6, right? There haven't been non-power teams that get to play for the championship in this sport. Well, we had one year where Cincinnati made the 4-team playoff. Like, it just hasn't happened. So, knowing that there's at least one spot at the table for the group of 6 is better than most of the history of this sport. But it's still a problem because we have 6 conferences and they're all playing for just one shot, one place in the playoff. It's still not good because the hypothetical that is probably not going to happen, but could happen, is that UNLV and Boise State could both go undefeated. And most likely only one of them's getting into the playoff. And it's probably going to be Boise State, by the way. But like, you could have teams go undefeated that don't make the playoff. And that sucks. Like, that's stupid. So would a separate playoff be better? I personally hate the idea simply because if you have a separate playoff, you are 100% saying we're in a different division. Like that is what you're saying. We are not in the highest division of college football. The group of 6 plays for their own championship. That's just a new championship and a new division. And I know the money's gotten so extreme that the gap in revenue from power conferences to group of 6 conferences is huge, right? We talked about it earlier in the show. It's UNLV. We're out here. It's amazing. They've got $77 million in revenue. Okay, Ohio State has 250, right? You're not on an even playing field at all. But as long as the power conferences aren't kicking me out, I'm sticking around, right? Like, I'd rather stay in the highest division of college football because this is what I would ask you. And I know the answer for some of you is yes. But did you watch the FCS title game? Did you watch the FCS playoffs? Do you watch any FCS regular season games? I don't. I didn't, right? I am fully invested in the highest level of college football, but I don't find myself watching FCS football. I don't think I'd be that interested in a group of 6 playoff. Obviously, if it happened and UNLV's in it, like, I'm going to talk about it, I will be invested as much as it goes for covering the team. But as far as a fan goes, I don't think I'm watching very much of that. Right? I don't think I care that much about it, right? It'd feel like the NIT. How many NIT games do you watch? The only ones I think I can remember watching are the ones that UNLV were in. So I just don't think enough people would care. Now, I do want to address one thing. If they were to do this in the format that Arnold brought up, 8 teams, 6 conference champs, and 2 at-large teams. If there was a group of 6 playoff, would they actually invite all 6 champions? Why do I feel like the American and maybe the Pac-12. I don't think the Mountain West would have the cachet, but I think the American and maybe the Pac-12 would assume the role that the SEC and the Big Ten have, where they're like, we're the power players, we make the decisions, and we think we deserve 3 or 4 teams in an 8-team playoff, so we're not giving out 6 automatic bids because that limits our chances to get a bunch of teams in the field. And in reality, right, like the best group of 5 programs are generally going to be from the American, from the Pac-12, maybe the Mountain West, and then there'll be a James Madison Sun Belt team probably every year that's worthy of it. But mostly we're going to see teams come out of a couple of conferences that are contending for that real playoff spot. So I feel like even if the group of 6 did do their own thing, I don't think we'd get the equality, or the equity is probably the better word there, across conferences, because I think some of the better group of 6 conferences would say, why are we going to put Kent State in when the American's third best team is better than Kent State? We're not doing that. So I would find that sort of power struggle funny, given what we've seen at the power conference level. Now, if I were group of 6, there are 2 things that I would really, really push for. The first one is that no matter how big the playoff field is, right? It stays at 12, they're eventually going to expand, whatever. But even just at 12, I would want some sort of guarantee, some sort of rule that if a team, any team goes undefeated, they're in the playoff. It does not matter what the committee ranks them. I don't care what their strength of schedule is. They're in the playoff, right? It's not likely to make a difference. It's not likely to change anything, right? Because first off, group of 6 teams don't go undefeated very often. And when they do, they're probably going to be the highest ranked group of 6 teams, so they would get in anyway. I just hate the idea that you could have undefeated teams get left out because they weren't the highest ranked group of 6 team. I just think that's stupid. It's the only sport where you can win all of your games and not win the champion, not even play for the championship. It just seems stupid that would be the case. So I would want to get that somewhere in there. And by the way, it might be. We hear different rules about the college football playoff that nobody knew about before. So it could already be in there. But that's one thing that I would push for as the group of 5 is just like, if teams go undefeated, we're going to get it. Now, people would be like, oh, they're going to schedule all these crappy teams and we're going to have all these 13-0 group of 5 teams that didn't play anybody. And I'm like, they're already not playing anybody and they still can't go undefeated. UNLV's strength of schedule was like 115 last year and they couldn't go undefeated. So everybody else will be fine. But the other thing that I would want, and this is only if it expands, right? If we get to 16 or beyond, or 24, right? If we get to 24, which I think we'll be at one day, I would really push for 2 group of 5 spots. And I know people would complain about it, and they're to complain about 1 spot. But if we go to 24, I think there should be a push for 2 group of 5 spots. And just if there's 24 teams in, make it 2 group of 5 spots. Because at 24, we're going to be talking about almost every single ranked team gets in. If you go look at the teams that come in the last 5 spots in the rankings every year, we're talking about a bunch of 9-3 teams. There's going to be 8-4 power conference teams that are in the mix for a playoff spot if we go to 24 teams. So if I were the group of 5, I would be pushing for give us 2 spots in a 24 team playoff, because do we need to see 8-4 Iowa in the playoff? Like, no, who cares? Right? Like it's not important that Kentucky goes 8-4 and we put them in. Give me 1 extra group of 5 team. So those are the 2 things that I would be pushing for if I were in the group of 5. Last thing on the show today. Thank you to Arnold, by the way, for the topic. I do actually think we'll probably see that because I do think the power conference is going to split away one day. But if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, check it out at patreon.com/technicallycorrect with Tyler Bischoff. Now, last thing on the show today, the Pac-12 football schedule. Didn't talk about this yesterday, but I kind of like it. If you haven't seen, the Mercury News, I think, had the first story on it. But the Pac-12 has 8 football teams for next season. That is problematic if you're trying to play 8 conference games, because you only have 7 opponents. You're going to have to play somebody twice if you have 8 conference games and only 8 conference teams. Well, apparently, here's the Pac-12's plan. They are going to everybody plays everybody, right? And that gets us through 7. And then the final week of the regular season, they're going to have a flex schedule, meaning the games are not set. Now, there's a couple of key details here. First off, this game will not count as a conference game. Before this week, they will have already decided who their conference championship teams are. This will not count in the standings. Also, they're going to predetermine 4 teams that will be at home and 4 teams that will be on the road. So teams can plan like, oh, we have a game. We don't have to all of a sudden host a game on the fly, which I think is very smart logistically. But who hosts who can change, right? And the actual opponents are going to be determined on what the Pac-12 thinks will help their playoff chances. And so to give you a hypothetical, Boise State, they're 10-1. If Boise State is 10-1 going into the final game of the season, and let's say, for example, they're ranked 23rd in the college football playoff ranking, but Memphis is ranked 17th, then the Pac-12 is going to look at Boise State and say, oh, we got to catch Memphis. We got to give them something to help them catch Memphis. And so now Boise State's game is against one of the better teams in the Pac-12. Or let's say Boise State's 10-1. We're going into the final weekend of the regular season. Boise State is ranked 17th. There's no other group of 5 school that's even ranked, right? Boise State's in great position. They just need to finish this thing off. You give them the crappiest team in the Pac-12, give them what's closest to a free win, and say, hey, we don't have to catch anybody. We just need status quo to stay in place. I love that idea of it. I think that's great. Anything where a conference or a team is trying to like game a system, I'm on board with it, right? I think it's phenomenal that is a possibility to say, hey, we need to boost the resume, or the resume's fine. We just need them to not lose. I love it. I think it's great. So I like that. I think it'll be fun. I think it's creative. I do think there is a big issue that could happen, though, because that last game is not going to count as a conference game. The Pac-12 is already going to know who's playing for the conference championship. With 7 games, there's a really good chance that it's like, oh, we had 1 6-1 team and 2 5-2 teams, and this team lost the tiebreaker, and now they're going to go, right? That there's going to be teams that are pretty close in these standings. Well, what happens if Boise State and Washington State are going to meet in the Pac-12 title game? And we already know that, and we go into the final week, and then they both lose. And now you've got no chance at a playoff team because everybody lost again, right? It feels like not counting it as a conference game could open the door to a team that doesn't have a real chance at going to the playoff being in that conference championship game and making it a little bit difficult. The other part that sucks is that's rivalry weekend. And I like rivalry weekend. I think rivalries are fun. You're not going to have that in this conference. Now, to be fair, what are the rivalries? Does the Pac-12 have any rivalries? Like, is Boise State and Utah State a rivalry? I guess San Diego State and Fresno State counts as a little bit of a rivalry, just in California together. Like, that conference doesn't have rivalries. And I've asked this about the Mountain West. There's not a lot of rivalries in the Mountain West either. UNLV Nevada is probably the best one. So both of these conferences are sort of losing some of what makes college football great. And so the Pac-12, like, rivalry weekend's supposed to be good, but they probably wouldn't have that anyways. So just flex the hell out of the schedule and we'll figure it out that way. So I like the creativity of it. I am fascinated to see if it blows up in their face or if it actually works and they're able to give a team a little bit of a boost or give them an easier win at the very end of the season to help the Pac-12 chances at getting to the playoff. I'll tell you this, if it works, people are going to be mad about it, right? If Boise State is the best group of 6 team, and Boise State gets some just terrible 2-11 or 2-9 football team, right? Just like Fresno State's awful. They're 2-9. Here you go, Boise State. Here's a free one. People are gonna be so pissed about that. They're gonna be so mad if that's the case. And I'm on board for that. I love people being mad. It'll be a lot of fun. But this is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. Thank you so much for tuning in.